Okay, guys, today we are going to be talking about direct variation. Today's EQ, the essential question is, how can we solve problems that involve direct variation? So make sure you're writing the notes down. You need to hit pause while we're going through this video. Go ahead and do so. First thing we're going to do is define what direct variation is. So direct variation is a linear relationship between two variables, your x and your y. That the relationship has to be proportional. It also passes through the origin, which is 0, 0, and I'll show you that later on a graph. And also it can be written as y equals kx or y equals mx if you wrote out an equation, okay? The next definition is constant of proportionality. The constant of proportionality is the k or the m in this equation. So either the k or the m. We're going to use the m most of the time, but just know it can be written kx or mx. But the constant of proportionality is that m or that k. It's also the coefficient, which means it's the number that's being multiplied by the x. So kx means k times x, it's the number being multiplied. Mx means m times x, the number being multiplied. This is a word you're going to learn here in a little while. It's called the slope. The constant proportionality is also called the slope or the rate of change. Okay, make sure you got those written down. Now, here's the hint I want to tell you. Whenever we have problems involving direct variation, you always want to use proportions to solve. Okay, a proportion is simply two ratios or two fractions that are equal to each other or equivalent. Once you set up your proportion, make sure that everything corresponds or matches, and we'll talk about that later. And there are two ways to solve it. You can either look for the scale factor in between the two ratios and then multiply by that, or if you don't see the scale factor, you'll cross product and solve the equation. And I'll show you both ways, okay? So real quick, there's the first page of your notes. Make sure you've got all that written down and then turn the page over. We're going to go right into guided practice. So let's read the first guided practice problem we have. Make sure you write this down. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to solve it, and then I'll go. It says the value of y varies directly with x. When y equals 15, x equals 3. What is the value of x when y equals 45? Okay, we'll actually do this one together. The hint, it says, well, let's talk about the hint later. First thing we want to do is set it up. So always go and look at your original problem. It says the value of y varies directly with x. That's a clue right there that I'm setting up a proportion whenever you see this, okay? So whenever you see that, write proportion. If you ever see direct variation or varies directly. Now you take the first two things that you see. It says when y is 15, x is 3. So put a 15 over a 3. Now I make my kids label it. So what was 15 again? 15 was your y. So that's going to be the y. And then 3 was your x. So put an x down here by the 3. Now our next thing is we've got one more number and we need to figure out whether it goes on top or on bottom. Well, it says, what is the value of x when y equals 45? It says y equals 45. So if my y's are on top over here, it needs to match. And that's what I said, match or correspond. Put your 45 up here. Okay. Now, if we don't know what this is, we can put the letter. And the letter was what? X. Okay. Now, the hint says look for the scale factor. What I mean by that is the number that goes in between here that you multiply by to get from the left to the right. If you notice 15 times something gives you 45, hopefully you notice that 15 times 3 is 45. That's called my scale factor. Whatever you do on the top, then you have to do on the bottom. So let's go on the bottom and do 3 times 3, and that will give me my answer, which is 9. So if y is 45, then x has to be 9. Easy when you see the scale factor, okay? Going to number 2. It says the value of y varies directly with x. Again, when y is 36, x equals 4. So what is the value of x when y equals 108? I'm going to give you just a minute to set this up. Hit pause if you want. Set this up and see if you cannot solve this yourself. Now, if you can't, you might get stuck. The hint is to try the cross product method if you don't see the scale factor. So I'm going to give you a second. Okay, let's go ahead and try to set this up. Hopefully you guys hit pause and try to do it on your own. I see my first thing I see is varies directly. I know that means I'm going to use a proportion. If you guys get in the habit of marking that, it'll help you. And the first thing I see is y is 36 and x is 4. So there's my first ratio, 36 and 4. But again, Mr. Fraley wants you to label it. So y is 36, x is 4. Now I've got my next number, which is 108. It says y equals 108, so I want to be consistent and match. So the y's need to go up top. And again, we're looking for x, so put x down here. Now, above, we found our scale factor, which was times 3. It might not be that easy to see this. And if you cannot see the scale factor, you do this. You cross product. Cross product means you find your variable and you circle that with the number that's diagonal from it. Those two numbers get multiplied together. So 36 times x, or simply 36x. That side is going to be equal to the product of the other two diagonals. So you go ahead and find the other two numbers and circle them diagonally, and those two numbers get multiplied together. 4 times 108. So this is how you cross product and set this up. Now, do what it tells you to do. I can't do anything over here, but I can do this. So let's go ahead and take 4 times 108. And I get 432. So bring down the 432 and bring down your 36x. Now, this is simply a one-step equation. So if they're multiplying by 36, we do the opposite, which is to divide by 36. These will cancel each other out, and I just need to plug this in the calculator. Now, please remember, you read it from top to bottom, you put it in from top to bottom. So it's 432 divided by 36, and we get x equals 12. So that's the answer to that question. Ready? Going on to the next part, numbers 3, 4, and 5. Last 3 questions. This is a word problem, guys. These are all 3 going to be word problems. They're a little different. They're a little more difficult, but not much. Number 3 says the number of Jolly Ranchers produced by a machine varies directly with the time the machine runs, okay? Varies directly with the time that the machine runs. The machine produces 20 Jolly Ranchers every 8 seconds. So how many will produce in 30 seconds? I look in my problem and I heard or read varies directly. Anytime I see varies directly, I write the word proportion. And then I set up 2 fraction bars that are equal to each other, okay? Now, I want to find my original 2 numbers or my original rate or relationship. And it says the machine produces 20 Jolly Ranchers every 8 seconds. So 20 over 8. Now we need to label it. They're not X and Y. We could label X and Y, but let's label it to what they actually say. 20 refers to the Jolly Ranchers. So I'm going to put R for Ranchers. 8 refers to the S, the seconds. So put S for seconds. And then let's find our third number. It says, how many will it produce in 30 seconds? So 30 is seconds. That should go on the bottom. And then we don't know what this is. So let's put Y because that is what, let's just put X for right now. Actually, doesn't matter. We'll put R. We'll put R for Ranchers. That way we know what we're finding. Okay? So now I'm going to look for my scale factor, okay? My scale factor, I don't see it. I don't recognize it. I think it might be a decimal, but that's not a big deal. So if we don't see the scale factor, you always find your variable and circle its diagonal, and you set this up. So 8 times R, or 8R, equals, and then circle the other 2 and multiply them together. 30 times 20. okay? I need to do what it tells me to before I start undoing things. And I can do 30 times 20. So 30 times 20 is actually 600. And then if they're multiplying by 8, we do the opposite, which is to divide by 8. They go away. And I better do this in the calculator. I don't trust myself. So 600 divided by 8 equals 75. So the question was, how many ranchers, how many will produce in 30 seconds? They can produce 75 Jolly Ranchers in 30 seconds. All right. Look at the next question. And I'm going to make this so you can still see the top above, because then it says, this is extending from question 3. It says, how many Jolly Ranchers will it make in 2 minutes? How many Jolly Ranchers will it make in 2 minutes? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our original ratio, which was 20 every 8 seconds. 20 every 8 seconds. And I'm going to put 20 ranchers, R for ranchers, and S for seconds. Now, what's the next number we've got? Guys, we got to be real careful. It says 2 what? It says 2 minutes. I don't have any minutes. I've got ranchers and seconds. Which one's related to minutes? Seconds is. So I need to know, we're going to have to do a conversion, aren't we? 2 minutes is equal to how many seconds? Well, I know 1 minute equals 60 seconds. So if I double that to get 2, I need to double 60. And if I double 60, I get 120 seconds. So I'm going to put my 120 seconds now. Instead of 2 minutes, I'm going to put 120 seconds because I need to have seconds here. And then here we're just going to put ranchers again. Okay. We're going to cross multiply because I still don't see my scale factor. So let's cross multiply. 8 times R, and I'm going to do that over here. So 8R equals, and then cross multiply your other side. 20 times 120. Okay. So bring down the 8R. We need to do the 20 times 120. I know 2 times 12 is 24, and then add the 2 zeros on it. So it's 2,400, right? And then if they're multiplying by 8, we divide by 8, and I'm running out of room, but I know 8 goes into 24 3 times, so 2,400 would be 300 times. So we have 300 Jolly Ranchers in 2 minutes. Last question. Again, this one extends from the prior knowledge above. It says, how long will it take to produce 225 Jolly Ranchers? Now, I want you to take our original ratio, which was 20 over 8, and we need to label it again. So 20 refers to the ranchers, 8 refers to the seconds, doesn't it? You know, above, in the above questions, it was asking how many ranchers, how many ranchers. This one's telling us how many ranchers, but now it wants to know how long or how many minutes or how many seconds. Where should I put my 225? Should I put it on the bottom like I've been doing? Or because it's Jolly Ranchers, should I put it up top with the R for the ranchers? Let's put it up top. Does that make sense? These are Jolly Ranchers. They got to go up above the Jolly Ranchers. So we're looking for the time this time. Again, I don't see my scale factor. Find your variable, start with that, and circle the diagonal. So 20 times X this time is going to be equal to the other diagonal multiplied together, which is 8 times 225. Okay, so let's go ahead and do 8 times 225. And we get 1,800. So 20x equals 1,800. And if they're multiplying by 20, so we divide by 20. And when we do that, we're going to go ahead and figure out what this is. 1,800 divided by 20 gives me 90. Oh, is it going to be seconds or minutes? Well, if we set it up as seconds, it's going to be 90 seconds. And there's your answer. I hope you guys understood this. Hopefully you guys got it right before I went over it. If not, let me know. I'll help you out. Have a good day.